Hey everybody, Mrmathblog here, and this lesson is multiply with regrouping. It's lesson 3.5 in the textbook we're following here. So our common core strand is here. We're going to use place value understanding to perform multi-digit arithmetic. And so our essential question is, how can we use regrouping to multiply two-digit numbers? So we've done this before, you guys, so we're just doing more of the same. So for example, how can we break apart and model to multiply 23 times 46? Do you remember doing the rectangles in the last lesson and the lesson before that? Well, we're not going to do it here, but let's see, we can talk about what we can do. We can break apart 23 and 46 by a rectangle, a 23 by 46 rectangle. So this would be 23, this would be 46, and so we can break it apart and make 23 into 20, so I'd go down 20 and then 3, so there'd be 23 right there, and 46, 40 and 6, and so we can break it apart and there'd be 4 different size rectangles in there, just like we did in the last lesson. Then we can find the area of those 4 separate rectangles by multiplying their numbers, by multiplying their dimensions, which is called their products when you multiply, and then just add them all together. Remember doing that? Okay. How about how can we use place value without a model to multiply 23 times 46? Okay, well, we can multiply the tens by the tens, so the 20s by the 40s, okay, and we can multiply the tens by the ones, okay, so the 20s times the 6, and then we can multiply the ones by the tens, the 3 times the 40s, and then we can multiply the ones times the ones, the 3 times the 6s, and we can add all those partial products together at the end right there. Okay, we're going to kind of do a little bit of that in today's lesson here. So here's a problem. On Saturday, an orchard sold 93 bags of apples. Right now is apple season, so it's October-ish for us right now, and so there are 25 apples in each bag. What is the total number of apples sold? Where I live, up in near Sacramento, they have this hill that's called Apple Hill, and you go drive up to Apple Hill, and you go out in this kind of country mountainy area, and you go into all these little different apple orchards, and they sell wonderful apple pies and apple everything out there, and they have hay rides and all that stuff. So anyway, so what we're going to do is there's 93 bags of apples, and in each bag there's 25 apples. So we're going to multiply 93 times 25. Okay. Well, what's an estimate of 93 times 25? Well, 93 would round to 90, and 25 is right in the middle. So when it's in the middle, we always round up. So we're going to round that to 30, okay? 9 times 3 is 27, and then we're just going to add those 2 zeros there. So it's 27 with 2 zeros, so we get 2,700. So that's an estimate, you guys. So it should be around that somewhere, okay? I just moved it up. All right, so let's go ahead and think this through and record it over here. So think of 93 as 9 tens. So here's 93, 9 tens and 3 ones. So what I'm going to do first is, or what we're going to do first is multiply the 23 by the 3 ones right here. Okay, 23 times 3 ones. Well, think of 3 quarters. How much money do you have when you have 3 quarters? You have 75 cents, okay, because a quarter is 25 cents. So 25 times 3 equals 75. Okay, and what we could have done is done 3 times 5 is 15, and then we would have carried the 1 over here, regrouped the 10 from the 15 right there, and did 3 times 2 is 6, and then so that would be 60, and we'd add that carried over 1, so it would be 70, 75 right there, okay? And then our second step is we're going to go ahead and multiply the 25 times the 9 tens right here, okay? So 25 times 9 tens. I'm going to show you a little different way over here, you guys. What I'm going to do is do 4 times 25, because I know 4 times 25 is 100. 4 quarters equals $1. 4 times 25 equals 100 again. 1 times 25 is 25, so 4 plus 4 plus 1 is 9. So 100 plus 100 plus 25 will be 225. So 9 times 25 is going to be 225. So 90 times 25 will be 225 with a 0, okay? So just add a 0 to 225, so it's 2,250, okay? And our last step here is we're going to go ahead and add those partial products right there. So when we go ahead and add, we get 2,325, okay? So 93 times 25 is 2,325, and since that number is close to our estimate, what we got above is 2,700, the answer is a reasonable answer. If I got a different answer right here, like 200 something, I know I messed up somewhere because my estimate was right here. So an estimate is always a good idea to see what kind of ballpark we want to get into when we're multiplying here. So explain why we get the same answer when we multiply 93 times 25 or 25 times 93. Okay, somewhere in one of the lessons I talked about when I drive to work. When I drive my truck to work, I'm commuting to work. They call it commuting. So I commute from my house to my job. Well, what these guys are doing is commuting around the multiplication sign. So see how the 25 and 93 are just replaced over here? This is 93 and 25. So they're commuting around the multiplication sign. So it's called the commutative property of multiplication. And it says when you commute the numbers around the multiplication sign, the products are always the same. So that's why 93 times 25 equals 25 times 93. Think of smaller numbers, you guys, like 5 times 2. What's 5 times 2? Okay, that's 10, right? What's 2 times 5? Well, that's 10 also. So 5 times 2 and 2 times 5, they're just being commuted around the multiplication symbol. All right, here's some different ways with multiplying. We can use many ways to multiply and get the same answer. So here, John and Julie both multiply 47 times 60 correctly, but they use different methods. Here's John's method, okay? John decided to break up the 40 as 40 and 7. So he did 40 times 60, and then he did 7 times 60, and then he added 40 and 7 together, gave him 47 times 60. So 4 times 6 is 24, and then we added these two zeros, or John added these two zeros, so he got 2400. And then 7 times 6 is 42 plus that 0, so 420. So when we add these together, we get 2,820, and that's what he got when he multiplied 47 times 60. It's a great way to multiply, you guys. It's an awesome way. And here's what Julie did. Julie multiplied by stacking the numbers together, and then she noticed that 60 ends in a 0, so she can just add two zeros right here and then go ahead and start multiplying the tens. 6 tens times 70 gives her 420 tens. So here's her 4. She carried that 4 up here. Here's the 420 tens. And then she did 6 tens times 4 tens. 6 times 4 is 24. So 24 plus the 4 up there is going to be 28. So 28 with the 20 right there. So 2820 right there. And then she added those together and got 2,820. Okay, both ways are good. They both get the correct answers right there. I'm kind of more inclined, actually it just kind of depends on what kind of mood I'm in. If you're multiplying by a number that ends in 0, then all you got to do is multiply the one-digit number times all that and just add a 0 to it. Okay, so you just multiply 6 times 7 is 42, carry the 4. 6 times 4 is 24, add the 4 that you carried, and then don't forget to add the 0 to it because it's times 60 right there. All right, I hope that makes sense, you guys. And if it does, then click like or subscribe. Take care, everybody.